Oh my gosh, what is up? Is this like 2019 all over again? I'm recording a video and there's a great reason for it. I finally have an impetus to make a YouTube video on this channel again. If you're new, welcome. I think this is consistent. I think this is a thing that I'm gonna get back into doing again. I've missed it, I really have. Being behind a screen and writing, as I'm about to talk about today, is my comfort zone, is my niche. But I miss just opportunities to sit in front of a camera and show you the mess behind the screen, which is really a great segue into this book, Struggle Central, which is now available in a second edition, the 10-year anniversary edition of my first book. It's got a new cover and everything. These are just the proofs, so ignore the little part where it says not for resale. This is not for sale. But if you go to Amazon.com with the links provided in the description, it's in paperback, and then it's also in this beautiful hardcover edition as well. First time I've ever done a hardcover, and it's so beautiful. I really liked the first cover, but it lacked kind of the humanity of the book. And so when I was redesigning the cover and communicating with my artist, I was like, I really would love that same, like, you still know you're reading the same book. The book hasn't changed. It's still Struggle Central. I'll get to what's different about it in a second. But I wanted a little boy standing on the shore looking out at the stormy waters, the mountains, the blue hills in the distance. I'm really thrilled with how the new cover came out. It's also still an ebook if you're a Kindle person. I just finished recording an audiobook version as well, which should be available as well. If not immediately upon release of this video, certainly in the days following, so check the description. The link will be there when it's also available. 4 ways that you can enjoy Struggle Central, the 10-year anniversary edition, with a new afterword from yours truly. Yeah, so why? Why another edition of this book? I talk about a lot of the reasons for why I'm writing the new afterword in the afterword itself. So I'm not gonna repeat everything or really much of anything that's in the afterword. I figured this video is an opportunity to kind of go at a different angle. Basically, I have COVID to thank for this new edition. I mean, maybe I still would have done it without COVID. Maybe I still would have gone through this process, but I will say having a pandemic hit the world in 2020, remember those first few months where we all thought we just have to tough this out for a few weeks, maybe a few months? Remember those days? Well, I remember those first few weeks, maybe the first month or two of the pandemic back in 2020. And I'd also just gotten an autoimmune disease. It was a lot. There was a lot going on in the world and in my life at that juncture. And I just remember with nowhere to go, everything was shut down. There's nowhere to go. I would walk laps around my neighborhood. I would just walk, sometimes for hours. Like I would walk down trails and roads that I had never before seen just because I had nothing else to do. I had nowhere to go. And as I walked, as I got out of the house and as my brain just kind of felt more free to wander places, I started thinking about this book, and I started thinking about how in just a few more years, it would be the 10-year anniversary of this book. I wrote it in 2013, so this was back in 2020. I started thinking about, when 2023 rolls around, wouldn't that be cool? Like to just re-release the book and add a new section where I look back on the last decade and just kind of whatever comes out, comes out. Like I didn't even know at the time what I would write about or how long it would be. I didn't have any concept of a new cover and just kind of the hardcover edition, all these new things. Had no concept about any of that. But the thought entered my imagination back in 2020, and it's been sitting in my imagination for the better part of these last 3 years. It's only been in the last few months where I really started, like it was literally a month and a half, maybe even 2 months into 2023, where I started thinking like, I wonder if I'm gonna actually follow through. Am I actually gonna do this? Am I actually gonna redo this whole book? Because it was a bunch of stages. It was finding a new cover. It was writing the afterword itself and having something new to put into the book. And then because I'm a self-publisher, it would entail having to reformat the book, headers and footers and page numbers and blank pages and all the things that maybe you take for granted as a reader when you open a book and you just see everything right where it's supposed to be. Like as a self-publisher, I have to do that. I have to put it all, and it's different. Like you can't really tell, but the hardcover is slightly bigger pages than the paperback, and so I had to reformat it in 2 different versions there. And then ebook formatting is completely different from this formatting. An audiobook is certainly way different. I had to take time to record that. So it was a lot of work, and there was a part of me at the beginning of this year where I just was like, I don't know if I have it in me. I honestly don't. I've been struggling the last couple of years to just be creative. I've been wanting to write a 3rd book for at least 2 or 3 years now, if not longer. And it's just not really gotten off the ground. So I was really struggling at the start of this year to feel like, is it even worth it to do a new edition of Struggle Central? I don't know. I just reached a point in February, end of February, I believe. I knew the 10-year anniversary was coming in mid-April at my birthday. And it was like, I reached a point where it was now or never. I'm either going to do this or I'm not. And I'm so glad I did, because it turned out really well. I started writing this afterward. I just wanted to see what would happen. And if nothing came out, then maybe this 10-year version wouldn't happen. Maybe I just would not do that or save it for the 20-year version, or I don't know, save it for another occasion. But I started writing, and it just, words and thoughts and perspectives just started coming out. I started thinking about how I've changed from this book, different ways to identify myself using words like SSA, same-sex attracted, or gay, or even queer. I started thinking about things that I've gained from this book, new relationships, new ministry opportunities through an organization that I co-founded, Your Other Brothers, this blog, this podcast, all these things that wouldn't have happened without this book as a stepping stone, for sure. And I started thinking about all the things I've lost as well. I started thinking about the loss of relationships, the loss of a lot of privacy, the loss of building relationships kind of the normal way versus writing a book and here's the deepest, darkest corners of my heart. Take it or leave it. So I started having all these thoughts, and turns out that an afterword became quite doable, quite attainable, and it came out. I was already proud of this book. If another edition never happened, I would have been proud of it no matter what. But I know I've grown as a writer in 10 years, and I know I had a lot of thoughts and perspectives on the last 10 years. And so having the book now, the way it looks, the way it sounds, the way it feels, all in all, from whatever version of the book you get, if you are so kind to get this book, it just feels like a stronger book. It's a book that I'm even more proud of. If that was even possible before, I didn't know if it was. I'm even more proud of it now. I really am. In preparing for this video, I watched my Struggle Central trailer. I made a book trailer. Do y'all know this? It's one of my most watched videos on this precious little YouTube channel. But yeah, I made a book trailer for Struggle Central back in 2013. And man, it took me back. It's like, it almost feels so 90s. I know this was recorded in 2013, but I'm gonna have like a little box on the screen somewhere playing it. I'm so cute. I'm sorry, I just gotta say it. I'm so cute. I walk in with my little staff, I set it down, I sit on a bench, I make these like dramatic looks at the camera, like this, and I go like this, and I look out like that. I talk about struggling, and I have a 10th Avenue, I have a couple of 10th Avenue North songs playing in the background. I still heart them, even though they're not a band anymore. Makes me sad. But like kind of the audio is a little off, you know, this is like super basic video editing. Like audio is a little off. There's cars whooshing in the background, planes, I think, flying overhead throughout it. I just look at that video now as a manifestation of the book itself, and I'm just so happy and so proud of the journey that it's been for 10 years, because I've heard from so many precious people all around the world who read this book and seen something of themselves in it. If they don't see their sexuality in it, maybe they see the social anxiety, or if they don't see that, maybe they see the bodily shame, just the struggling to figure out why I'm on this planet geographically, like where do I belong and who are my people. These are all just like very basic human themes that I think back then I was maybe too sucked into myself to think that other people might resonate. And I think what's been really cool is just hearing from so many different types of people over the last 10 years, saying that they've seen something of themselves in this book, some of their struggles and some of their humanity. And so that really touches me. And I'm hopeful that it reaches a whole new audience, honestly. Like 10 years later, like it blessed me so much to just hear from even one person who picks up this book and hears about it now. And they didn't hear about it 10 years ago, or didn't know about it 10 years ago, and they're just discovering it today. I hope whoever you are, if you're out there watching right now, I hope it blesses you. I hope my story can connect with yours. And I'd love to hear anything. Tell me a story. Tell me your story. If anyone wants to share about like what fire is burning inside of you, something that needs to come out, whether it is your sexuality or whether it's a book, whether it's a song, whether it's a nonprofit or a ministry that you want to start. Like, I just want to hear kind of what's birthing inside of you, because this book for 4 years was being birthed inside of me when I first got the idea for it in 2009. So when it finally came out in 2013, a lot of life had to happen in between. But I'm so glad I followed the holy whispers, as I call them, to where it led me in 2013. And I'm so glad I followed them again here in 2023. I love all you guys. Thank you for sticking with me. And please bother me if I don't make a video again soon. Truly. Stay tuned. I'm gonna attach a little audiobook preview. It's the first section of the afterword that follows the original text that kind of recaps it all and looks forward. So here's a little preview now of that afterword, and I hope you enjoy it. Afterword, 10 years later. I write from the same Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina that changed my life once upon a lifetime. These hills continue cupping me, cradling me, colliding into me. This place and the people here, forming and forging a fuller Tom who climbs further and further away from the Tom of the preceding pages. He feels almost unrecognizable now. Almost. I had no concept at camp I'd return just 4 years later to lay roots in the Blue Ridge, whatever laying roots looks like for a wanderer like me. Someone who tends to travel for weeks, if not months at a time. Whenever I'm driving or hiking or walking city streets here, I must blink a few times at the blue hills beyond me to make certain they don't disappear, that I don't wake up from this dream, because I am, in fact, learning to call this ethereal place home. But let's back up a decade. When camp ended that summer of 2012, I only knew to do two things with my life: return westward to my then home of Southern California, and with no more reservations, excuses, or delay, write my first book. This book. After 3 years of heeding holy whispers and chewing on the concept, the cud was ready. Camp had just given me an epic conclusion to my first quarter century, and it was finally time to pull back some curtains and dip my quill in an inkwell of teardrops. As soon as I hit Orange County, I set to work on Struggle Central, the title present from the start, thanks to that infamous bathroom stall. I put words to stories I'd stifled since kindergarten, stories from childhood to adolescence to early adulthood, stories from Pennsylvania to Georgia to California to Wisconsin to North Carolina, running all the way through my Ridgecrest summer. That fall, winter, and spring, I wrote several drafts of this book, and by mid-April, I released it like a mama eagle throwing her firstborn from the nest, hoping with all hope it, and even I, might fly. This book did fly, continues to soar all these years later, and I've never been the same. I'm 36 now, and I'm still living from that decision to tell my story at 26. A mere afterword would never say how much this book has changed everything about my life, along with countless lives I've intersected over the last decade. Can you tell I'm giddy to be writing here again? I've fantasized about this new edition for a few years now. I thought it'd be nostalgic and perhaps revelatory to look back on the biggest decision of my life, with a decade of perspective between these two Toms. How did I feel upon first writing this book? And how do I feel today? Am I still proud of it? Do I have any regrets? What's my biggest pushback from this book? Was I tempted to change anything in this edition? Did I change anything? What ripples followed from this book? What did I gain and what have I lost? How do I view myself all these years later? And for all I've learned about myself through 10 additional years of journeying, what would I say is my most central struggle, the one from which all other struggles flow? Oh, reader, where to begin? It's good to be back.